Hi everyone, it's me, Ella, and welcome back to my channel. Now, I know you haven't seen me on here in a couple of weeks. That's because last week was probably the craziest week of my life, and apologies also if I do look a bit dishevelled and a little bit tired, as last week was full of late nights, and B, I've literally just come back from a swimming session. So apologies if I do look a little bit tired. So if any of you saw my last video, you will know how crazy last week was for me. And the intention was for me to vlog the entire week. But unfortunately, that didn't end up happening, as the queues for both Pretty Woman, on all occasions may I add, and Frozen were absolutely horrendous. So unfortunately I couldn't vlog because the crowds and the queues were absolutely mental. In fact, I don't know which queue was worse, Pretty Woman or Frozen, put it like that. Genuinely don't know which queue was worse. But to compensate for the lack of vlogging, I have decided to do an overview of the entire week split into two videos. So this one is Pretty Woman, and then the next one will be Frozen. So without further ado, let's jump in with Pretty Woman. So I went to 4 performances. I went to the opening night on Monday. Then I went to Thursday night, Friday night and Saturday afternoon, 3 on the bounce consecutively. So the first night I went, which was obviously Monday, the opening night, I wore my blue and white spotty dress, which was reminiscent of the one that Vivian wears to the races in the second half. And Monday was also my one and only stop at the merch stand the entire week. And I went and bought these. So I went and bought a Nottingham programme. And then I also went and bought the Pretty Woman UK Tour brochure in Nottingham as well. Now, I did also see the show in Wimbledon in February with my friend Jack, and I did get a programme from there, but I didn't get a brochure. So I thought, oh, never mind that, I'll just get one when I'm in Nottingham, which is what I did. And then also, when I'm in Leicester next week, I will get a programme from there as well. So that was my only stop off at the merch stand the entire week, as I already own pretty much the entire shop as it is for Pretty Woman. So the opening night cast then, we had Amber Davies as Vivian Ward, Oliver Saville as Edward Lewis, Natalie May Paris as Kit DeLuca, and Oduba as Happy Man and Mr. Thompson. Now, despite having all 4 mains the first night, Ben Darcy, who normally plays Stucky as principal, was off Monday night, so we had Stuart McKeever as Stucky instead. And the first night I absolutely loved it. I genuinely couldn't help but smile all the way through. And upon leaving the theatre, I genuinely couldn't speak. I loved it so much that I had just fell utterly speechless. But I still had an absolute lovely time. I loved it. I absolutely loved it the entire way through. So anyway, fast forward another 48 hours to Thursday the 5th of September, and I am back again. And this time I was lucky enough to grab front row seats, which I have been desperate for such a long time now. I really have. I've been wanting to do front row for Pretty Woman for ages. And to think that I've finally managed to do that in Nottingham, it was amazing. I absolutely loved seeing the show up close. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And there was also a pre-show touch tour on Thursday as well, as the performance was audio described, which I absolutely loved. The touch tour was incredible, and to be able to see the show front row later that evening made the experience even more magical. I absolutely loved it. However, there was a slight downside on Thursday, and that was wearing my opening outfit Vivian costume. So the red jacket, the blue skirt, the white top and the black boots. And well, by the time I got to the interval, my feet were throbbing. So, as you can probably guess, it was in fact the black boots that were being a bit of a pain. Because what happened was my feet were at a bit of an angle, a bit of a funny angle, during the show on Thursday because of the black boots, and they are heeled as well. So no wonder my feet were at a funny angle. So lesson learnt. I will not be wearing the opening outfit Vivian costume when I am transferring to another seat. But thankfully, when I got back into the wheelchair at the end of the show, my feet were fine. So that's always good to hear. But lesson learned, I will not be wearing the opening outfit Vivian costume when I am transferring to another seat, which unfortunately does include Leicester next week. But rest assured, I have plenty of other options to consider. But I still had such an amazing time at the show on Thursday. So, fast forward another 24 hours and I am back again in the red dress, which is just hanging up behind me here, sitting in the box seats and seeing the show from up there, wearing the red dress in the box. It was amazing. I absolutely loved it. And is now a good time to say that every time I went to the show, without fail, I was sobbing at You and I and Long Way Home every time I went. And I absolutely loved seeing the show from up there in the box on the Friday. It was brilliant. And also another thing to mention was that on Friday we actually had the new first cover Vivian Ward, Rebecca Bryant, covering obviously for Amber Davies. And oh my goodness me, Rebecca was absolutely brilliant. I loved her performance. I really did. Absolutely loved her portrayal of Vivian. Loved it. So, fast forward another 24 hours to the Saturday afternoon show, where I was an absolute emotional wreck. I was sobbing during the Saturday afternoon show, especially with it being my last time seeing the show in Nottingham during its week stint. And I had been given strict instructions as we had to be on the 6 o'clock train to London to obviously go and see Frozen on the Sunday, to leave the show on Saturday at a specific point where Edward was on the ladder climbing up to Vivian. And on the way out, as we were leaving and going down in the lift, bearing in mind I was sitting in the dress circle, on the way out, I was sobbing. I was such a mess, and I really didn't want to leave, and I loved it. In fact, I loved it so much that I just wanted to stay. I'd loved the week so much that I just really wanted to stay and didn't want to say goodbye to it for another week. But as they say, if you don't leave, you can't come back, which brings me on to my final Leicester show next week, where in fact I will be a literal mess. So let's not talk about that, because saying goodbye to this show again after it left the Savoy, I just don't want to think about it. The Savoy, I was so emotional for the longest time after it closed. I really was. So let's just end that conversation there and address that when the time comes next week. And you will notice that my red dress is still hanging up. And there is a very good reason for that. And that reason is very exciting. That reason is because I am going to see the actual opera from Pretty Woman at the Royal Opera House next week, La Traviata, which I am really looking forward to. And what a wonderful way to be able to engage with the show before seeing it for my final time in Leicester. I am sure that the opera will stay with me forever. And yes, I definitely will be vlogging the opera. So do stay tuned for that. And I will see you in my next video, which will be the overview of the last Frozen performance. So I shall see you then. Bye!